The sixth clause is this. What if I ate lunch with you? The speaker states the action that the speaker as the subject assumes to actualize at a point in the past with the transitive verb ate in the subordinate clause. The intransitive pronoun what indicates the main clause. The subordinate clause linked by the conjunctive adverb if, the assumed action of the speaker as the subject in the past to be actualized in the past. The speaker indicates the main clause with the interrogative pronoun what to indicate the result of the assumed action in the subordinate clause. The speaker intends to hear from the listeners to say about the result of the assumption stated in the subordinate clause. If I ate lunch with you. One of the possible responses is stated in the conference. It would be a pleasure. The pronoun it can be considered to indicate the phrase of the to infinitive to have lunch with you. The modal verb would specifies the definition of the be verb to define the subject with the subjective complement a pleasure to define the subject. The modal verb would reveals that the condition described by the be verb be is assumed. The modal verb would to reveal that the clause is stated in the past tense reveals that the speaker at the present assumes the past point in time when the subject is the speaker at the present does not actualize the definition of the be verb. So the modal verb would indicate the point in the past when the speaker was brought by Jesus Christ to actualize the condition indicated by the be verb. The seventh sentence is this. Had you had the unique taste, you might have been amazed. The speaker states the assumption in the subordinate clause with the abbreviated conjunctive adverb if, so that the speaker intends to state the subordinate clause in the same arrangement as the interrogative clause. The be verb as the intransitive verb with the trait as an adverb as well starts the interrogative clause. Are you okay? Or is he okay? So the listeners can understand that the speaker assumes the experience from the far point in the past to the close point in the past with the intransitive verb had, the subject who are the listeners, and the past participle had as an adverb to specify the intransitive verb had. The intention of the speaker who arranges the clause of the assumption, like the interrogative clause, is clarified. The fact that the subordinate clause as the assumption can be valid for the listeners who don't have the experience. For the listeners who the subordinate clause is considered on assumption, the main clause is valid. The main clause states the assumed experience from the close point in the past to the assumed present as the effect of the assumed experience in the subordinate clause. So, the listeners who have the experience stated in the subordinate clause are not conveyed the assumed experience stated in the main clause. This arrangement of the sentence is helpful to convey the intention of the speaker to the plural number of the listeners who have or don't have the experience stated in the subordinate clause. The speaker abbreviates the conjunctive adverb if and starts the subordinate clause with the intransitive verb had. So the speaker states the subordinate clause to assume the condition from the far point in the past to the close point in the past, which is arranged in the same order as the interrogative clause. That conveys the interrogative intention of the speaker. According to the experience that the listeners went through in the past, the statement of the subordinate clause can be accepted as true to the listeners, and the subordinate clause is able not to convey the intention of the assumption because the speaker intends the experience assumed in the subordinate clause to be accepted selectively by the listeners, consistent with the experience of the listeners. The speaker states the subordinate clause in the same arrangement as the interrogative clause. So, the experience from the close point in the past to the assumed present, which the speaker assumes in the main clause, is accepted selectively by the listeners who are accorded with the experience described in the subordinate clause from the far point in the past to the close point in the past. The listeners who are certain not to have the experience stated in the subordinate clause are conveyed the effect of the assumed experience in the main clause to state the next assumed experience. Thank you for watching.